Now, here's a tricky question. If you can see it, it says, discuss the success methods of mitigation and adaptation in tackling the threat of climate change. 9 marks, 3 for Spag. Now then, what I would do, discuss question, got to do some plus and minus, some positives and negatives. Mitigation is how you're going to reduce. Adaptation is about future change. What I would also do is I'd make a little note of what you can do in terms of on your exam paper. I would go with, so mitigation, and you need these. Okay, alternative energy, planting trees, international agreements, carbon capture. And then when you get down to doing adaptations, you're looking at agriculture in terms of latitudes, okay, types. You're looking at water supplies, okay, and then you're looking at managing rising sea levels. Now, those kind of things are just there to help me structure my answer. So, as quick as I can, I'll get on with it. So, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to start with, so I'm going to go with mitigation. So, I'm going to do this straight off one take. Mitigation is the reduction of the impacts of climate change. So hopefully it's showing you know what you're talking about straight away. And we're going to go with at least 3 of these examples. Okay, so this is managing and reducing the reduction. So we'll go with, so mitigation includes, so this includes I'm going to say alternative energy, so we're going to list them first. So we know it's alternative energy, we've got planting trees, we've got international agreements, and we've got carbon capture. Now you don't have to talk about all of these. 3 will do. 2 in detail. So we'll start with alternative energy. So alternative energy, don't forget we've got to discuss positives and negatives. Okay, alternative energy, for example, and we'll put down renewables. Such as solar power, wind power, and tidal. And then we've got to discuss the success. So we're going to say will be or are successful in managing threats of climate change. And then we have to say why, say what they do. It is as climate change as they do not emit any or CO2 or greenhouse gases. Okay, but then you can say Now, however, they are very expensive. Often located, in the terms of solar power and wind, often located away from urban areas. That require electricity and power. So your e.g. you've got wind, like rural hilltops, okay, and often offshore locations. You might say, e.g. you've got Liverpool Bay. Okay. So that'll do, as long as you've got it. You've got a however in there, so you've got some good points here and some bad points there. It looks a bit lengthy, but we'll go on to international agreements. So we'll do it here. So secondly, international agreements. Excuse my handwriting. E.g., I'm going to rattle off a few. We can say Kyoto, 2005. We'll do a more recent one as well. Paris, 2015. Okay. Aim to limit, we're going to say greenhouse gas emissions or output. We'll go emissions. Okay, across. That's not just several countries, but it's about 195 countries. Now that can only be a good thing. So secondly, international agreements, e.g. Kyoto, Paris, aim to limit greenhouse gas emissions across 195 countries. This should be very successful in managing climate change. But again, we'll use however again. However, President Trump has, we'll call it, U-turned and, just to say, backed out of the agreement Obama had signed. Okay. And the impact of this is, so therefore, the success, I will say, of this method, again, I will say, is questionable. Now, I'm going to turn over the page in a minute. So we've got some good points and we've got some bad points. Okay, I'll turn that over. Now then, I'm just going to do one more, and it's about... I did have alternative energy. Right, carbon capture, okay? So carbon capture, in theory, will reduce the impacts of climate change. We'll say in theory, because it is in, we'll call it in what we call infancy and untested currently. So the success of carbon capture is limited. You can talk about, finally, planting trees. Will produce more oxygen, and absorb CO2. So this would be successful. Again, however, so got a good point and a bad point. However, this will take time. And deforestation is widespread across the globe, especially Amazon and Indonesia. Now, it's a big answer so far, and we've still got to move on to now. So you can say turning to adaptations, and you go on to talk about agriculture and the changing types of agriculture or moving agriculture to different latitudes. The further north you can go, it's going to be easier to grow crops because of the change in temperatures. So warmer climates in Europe and North America could lead to an increase in production in certain crops such as wheat. You've also got managing water supplies, where you've got border countries and the countries that border the Himalayas kind of damming the water in winter to release it as it melts in the spring, so they can use that to provide water for villages, such as villages Ladakh in India, where water is collected through a system of channels. And then you've got rising sea levels. You've got, building houses on stilts, restoring coastal mangrove forests, and even building seawalls and artificial islands. So make sure you cover both the positives and negatives and split it into two sections, one about mitigation and one about adaptations. You don't need to write about everything as long as you cover 2 or 3 in detail. Okay, I'll just go back and take a picture of these.